The night air on Viridion 7 smelled like burning metal and ash. Corporal Taemin Park dragged his boots through the mud as he walked back to his tent. His hands still shook from the surgery he had performed 3 hours ago. Another young soldier, barely 20 years old, had lost his leg to a plasma mine. Taemin had saved the boy's life, but the screaming still echoed in his ears. The forward operating base was quiet now. Most soldiers were asleep in their tents, trying to grab a few hours of rest before the next patrol. Guard towers lit up the perimeter with harsh white lights, and somewhere in the distance, artillery fired at unseen targets. The war against the Velkari Empire had been going on for 2 years now, and everyone was tired. Taemin was 28 years old, but he felt twice that age. His younger brother had died 4 months ago in an ambush. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his brother's face. Every time he saved a wounded soldier, he wished he could have saved his brother instead. He pushed open the flap of his tent and stepped inside. The space was small, just big enough for a cot, a footlocker, and a small table where he kept his medical supplies. He had pinned a photo of his family to the tent wall, taken before the war started, when everyone was still smiling. Taemin sat down on his cot and started unlacing his boots. His shoulders ached, and his eyes burned from lack of sleep. He had been awake for 18 hours straight, moving from one emergency to another. All he wanted was to sleep for a few hours without dreaming. That was when he heard it. A soft whimpering sound, like a hurt animal trying to stay quiet. Taemin froze. His hand moved slowly to the pistol on his belt. The sound came from under his cot. He leaned down carefully, his heart pounding, and looked into the shadows. 2 large eyes stared back at him. They glowed faintly in the darkness, reflecting the dim light from his battery-powered lamp. The eyes blinked, and the whimpering stopped. Taemin grabbed his lamp and pointed it under the cot. What he saw made him catch his breath. A small creature was curled up in the corner, trying to make itself as tiny as possible. It had 4 arms, pale skin covered in strange patterns that glowed softly like dying embers, and a face that looked almost human but not quite. The creature was covered in injuries. Purple blood stained its skin, and deep burns crossed its chest and arms. It was a Velkari child. The enemy. Right here, in his tent. Taemin's mind raced. He should shout for the guards. Colonel Dong Hyun Choi had made the rules very clear. Any Velkari found on base was to be detained or eliminated. No exceptions. The colonel had lost too many soldiers to show mercy to the enemy. But this was not a soldier. This was a child, small and terrified, bleeding on the floor of his tent. The child made the whimpering sound again. One of its 4 arms clutched a piece of torn fabric, holding it like a precious treasure. The fabric was covered in the same purple blood. Taemin realized it must have belonged to the child's parent. The child's eyes met his. They were filled with pain and fear, but also something else. Hope, maybe. A desperate hope that this human would not hurt it. Taemin thought of his own brother. He thought of the last time he had seen fear in someone's eyes like that. His hand moved away from his pistol. "It's okay," he whispered, even though he knew the child could not understand his words. "I'm not going to hurt you." He moved slowly, trying not to scare the child more than it already was. He reached under the cot with one hand extended, palm up, showing he had no weapon. The child flinched but did not run. Taemin's medical training took over. He could see the child was badly hurt. The burns looked several hours old, and some of the wounds were still bleeding. If he did not treat them soon, the child might die. He made a decision that would change everything. Carefully, gently, he pulled the child out from under the cot. It weighed almost nothing. Light as a bird. The child's 4 arms wrapped around him weakly, and it made a soft chirping sound that might have been crying. Taemin laid the child on his cot and opened his medical kit. He had treated Velkari wounds before, on dead soldiers they found after battles. Their biology was different from humans, but not so different that he could not help. He worked quickly and quietly. He cleaned the burns with antiseptic gel, trying to be as gentle as possible. The child whimpered, but did not pull away. It seemed to understand he was trying to help. He wrapped the worst wounds in bandages and gave the child a small dose of pain medication. He was not sure if it would work on Velkari biology, but he had to try. As he worked, he studied the child's face. It had the same basic features as an adult Velkari, the ones he had seen in combat footage, but softer, rounder. The glowing patterns on its skin pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat made of light. The child looked up at him with those large, trusting eyes. When he finished, Taemin sat back and looked at what he had done. He had just committed treason. If anyone found out, he could be court-martialed, maybe even executed. But looking at the small, wounded creature on his cot, he knew he could not have made any other choice. The child's eyes were starting to close. The pain medication was working. Before it fell asleep, it reached out with one small hand and touched Taemin's arm. The touch was warm and light, like a butterfly landing on his skin. Taemin pulled a blanket over the child and dimmed his lamp. He sat on the floor next to the cot, his back against the footlocker, and watched the child sleep. Outside, the war continued. Artillery fired in the distance. Patrol vehicles rumbled past his tent. But inside this small space, there was peace. He knew he could not keep this secret for long. Someone would notice eventually. But for now, in this moment, he had saved a life instead of taking one, in a war where death was everywhere. That felt like something worth protecting. The child's breathing became slow and steady. The glowing patterns on its skin dimmed to a soft pulse. It clutched the torn piece of fabric close to its chest. Even in sleep, Taemin thought about his brother again. He thought about all the children, human and Velkari, who had lost their families in this war. He thought about the hatred that had grown between their species, and how easy it was to forget that the enemy were people too, with children who cried and bled just like human children. He did not know what he was going to do next. He did not have a plan, but he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to let this child die. Not if he could help it. As the night grew deeper and the base fell into complete silence, Taemin made himself a promise. He would protect this small life, no matter what it cost him. In a war that had taken so much, maybe this was his chance to give something back. The child stirred in its sleep and made a soft sound, almost like a word. Taemin reached up and gently touched its hand. "You're safe now," he whispered. "I promise." Outside, the war raged on. But inside this tent, a soldier had made a choice that would change everything. 3 days passed like walking on broken glass. Every moment, Taemin expected someone to discover his secret. Every footstep outside his tent made his heart race. Every time someone called his name, he thought this was it. This was when everything would fall apart. But somehow, he managed to keep the child hidden. He named the child Kijun, after his younger brother. It felt right somehow, like he was getting a second chance to protect someone he loved. Kijun was small for a Velkari, probably the equivalent of a 6-year-old human child. The glowing patterns on his skin changed color with his emotions. Blue when he was calm, orange when he was scared, and a soft pink when he was happy. Taemin learned quickly that Kijun was smart, much smarter than a human child of the same age. By the second day, Kijun had learned to understand simple words: water, food, quiet. By the third day, he was trying to say them back, his voice high and musical, like wind chimes. The hardest part was hiding Kijun during the day. Taemin worked long shifts in the medical tent, and he could not take Kijun with him. He taught the child to stay under the cot, to be absolutely silent when anyone came near. Kijun seemed to understand the danger. He never made a sound when other soldiers walked past. At night, when Taemin returned to his tent, Kijun would crawl out from his hiding place, his eyes bright with relief. Taemin would check his wounds, change his bandages, and share his meal rations. Ki-jun ate carefully, watching Tae-min's every move, learning how to act like a human. On the second night, Tae-min made a terrible mistake. He ran out of bandages. He had used most of his personal medical supplies on Ki-jun's wounds. He needed more, but he could not take them from the medical tent without someone noticing. He sat on his cot, trying to figure out what to do, while Ki-jun watched him with worried eyes. Someone knocked on his tent pole. Tae-min's blood went cold. "Tae-min? You in there?" It was Sergeant Hae-won Kim, a fellow medic. She worked the night shift with him sometimes, a tough woman with kind eyes and quick hands. Tae-min looked at Ki-jun and put a finger to his lips. The child's patterns turned orange with fear, but he nodded and crawled silently under the cot. Tae-min kicked some dirty clothes over the spot where Ki-jun had been sitting. "Come in," Tae-min said, trying to keep his voice steady. Hae-won pushed through the tent flap. She held a box of medical supplies. "You left these at the medical tent. Thought you might need them." "Thanks," Tae-min said, reaching for the box. His hands were sweating. Hae-won did not hand over the box. She looked at him carefully, her eyes searching his face. "Are you okay? You've been acting strange the last few days." "I'm fine. Just tired. We're all tired." She stepped further into the tent. "But you're different. You keep taking extra food from the mess hall. You're using more medical supplies than usual, and you look scared all the time." Tae-min felt his heart pounding so hard he thought she might hear it. "I'm not scared. I'm just—" That was when Ki-jun sneezed. It was a tiny sound, barely audible, but in the silence of the tent, it was as loud as a gunshot. Hae-won's eyes went wide. Her hand moved to the pistol on her belt. "What was that?" Nothing. Just, don't lie to me, Tae-min." Her voice was hard now. "What's under your cot?" True. Tae-min knew he was caught. There was no point in lying anymore. He held up his hands. "Please. Hae-won. Let me explain." "Step back," she ordered. She pulled out her pistol and pointed it at the cot. "Come out. Now. Or I'll shoot." There was a moment of terrible silence. Then Ki-jun crawled out slowly from under the cot. His forearms trembled, and his skin patterns flashed bright orange. He looked at the gun, then at Tae-min, his eyes full of betrayal and fear. Hae-won stared. The gun shook in her hand. "Is that? That's a Velkari child." "Yes, in your tent. You're hiding a Velkari child in your tent." She said it slowly, like she could not believe her own words. "I can explain." "Explain?" Hae-won's voice rose. "Do you know what they'll do to you? This is treason, Tae-min. They'll execute you for this." "He was dying," Tae-min said quietly. "He's just a child. He was hurt and scared, and I couldn't let him die. It's the enemy." "He's a child." Tae-min stepped between Hae-won's gun and Ki-jun. "Look at him. Really look at him. He's not a soldier. He's a scared little kid who lost his family." Hae-won looked at Ki-jun. The child was crying now, tears running down his face. His forearms wrapped around himself. He made that whimpering sound again, the same sound Tae-min had heard on the first night. "Please," Tae-min said. "Don't report this. I'm begging you. My Tae-min on record. Tae-min on record. Tae-min on record." Hae-won lowered her gun slowly. She stared at Ki-jun for a long time. The child stared back, his orange patterns slowly fading to blue. "This is insane," she whispered. "This is absolutely insane. I know. If anyone finds out, I know." Hae-won closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, she looked tired and scared, but also determined. "How bad are his injuries?" Relief flooded through Tae-min. "He's healing, but I need more bandages. And antibiotics, if you can get them. Velkari antibiotics or human ones. Human ones seem to work, His biology is close enough to ours. Hye-won put her gun away and knelt down in front of Ki-jun. The child flinched back, but she moved slowly, carefully. "Hey there, little one. I'm not going to hurt you." Ki-jun looked at Taemin. Taemin nodded. "It's okay. She's a friend." Ki-jun reached out one small hand and touched Hye-won's finger. She smiled, and for the first time, Taemin saw tears in her eyes. "He's so small," she said. "I didn't know they could be this small." "He's just a kid," Taemin said. "That's all he is." From that night on, Hye-won helped. She brought extra food, medical supplies, even a small blanket she had stolen from storage. She visited Ki-jun when she could, teaching him more words, playing simple games with him. Ki-jun learned fast. He started to understand more complex sentences. He drew pictures in the dirt outside the tent, showing Taemin and Hye-won what had happened to his family. The drawings were simple but heartbreaking. Bright lights falling from the sky, buildings on fire, people running, and in the center of it all, a small figure, alone. "Skyfire," Ki-jun said, pointing at the drawing. His voice was getting clearer every day. Skyfire took family. Taemin realized what Ki-jun meant. Orbital bombardment. The human fleet had attacked a Velkari settlement, thinking it was a military target, but it had been a refugee camp. Ki-jun's entire family had died in that attack. "I'm sorry," Taemin whispered. "I'm so sorry." Ki-jun looked at him with those large, understanding eyes. "Not your fault. War fault." Those words hit Taemin like a physical blow. This child, who had lost everything to human weapons, did not blame him. Instead, he blamed the war itself. But danger was growing closer every day. Lieutenant Jin-ho-yoon, the base intelligence officer, had noticed the missing medical supplies. He was asking questions, checking inventory lists, interviewing soldiers. It was only a matter of time before he tracked the missing supplies to Taemin's tent. On the third night, Hye-won came to the tent with bad news written all over her face. "Jin-ho is doing random inspections tomorrow," she said. "He's checking tents, looking for the supply thief." Taemin felt his stomach drop. "What do we do?" "I don't know. We can't move Ki-jun. Someone will see, and we can't hide him if Jin-ho does a thorough search." Ki-jun looked between them, his patterns turning orange. "Bad?" he asked. "Danger? Maybe," Taemin admitted. He would not lie to the child. Ki-jun thought for a moment, then spoke in his musical voice. "Then I go. Keep you safe." "No," Taemin said immediately. "No, you're not going anywhere. But you in danger. Because of me. I don't care." Taemin knelt down and took Ki-jun's small hands in his. "I'm not letting you go. I promise to keep you safe. And I keep my promises." Ki-jun's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were different tears. His patterns turned the softest pink Taemin had ever seen. The child threw his forearms around Taemin's neck and held on tight. "Love you," Ki-jun whispered. The words were clumsy, spoken in a voice still learning human language, but they were the most beautiful words Taemin had ever heard. "I love you too, little one," Taemin whispered back. Outside the tent, the base prepared for another day of war. But inside, a human soldier and an alien child held each other. And for a moment, the war did not matter at all. The inspection came at dawn. Taemin was at the medical tent when he heard the commotion. Soldiers were lining up outside their tents, standing at attention while Lieutenant Jin-ho-yoon and 2 military police officers went through each one systematically. His hands shook as he stitched up a soldier's arm. Hye-won was across the medical tent, her face pale and tight. They both knew what was coming. Taemin had hidden Ki-jun under a pile of dirty laundry in his footlocker, with strict instructions to stay absolutely silent, no matter what happened. But the footlocker was not locked. If Jin-ho decided to search it, everything was over. A young private ran into the medical tent, breathing hard. "Corporal Park, they're searching your tent right now. Lieutenant Yoon wants you there." Taemin's heart stopped. He put down his medical instruments with shaking hands. Hai-1 caught his eye. Her expression said everything. This was it. The end. Tae-min walked across the base like a man walking to his execution. The morning sun was just starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It would have been beautiful if he was not so terrified. When he reached his tent, Jin-ho was standing outside with the two MPs. The lieutenant was a tall man, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. He had a reputation for being thorough, almost obsessive about details. "Corporal Park," Jin-ho said, his voice formal. "We're conducting random inspections for stolen military property. Do you consent to a search of your tent?" "Do I have a choice?" Tae-min asked. "Not really," Jin-ho smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "After you," Tae-min pushed through the tent flap. His cot was already torn apart, blankets thrown on the floor. The two MPs were going through his personal belongings, checking every corner. One of them was standing right next to the footlocker. Jin-ho followed Tae-min inside. "We've been tracking missing medical supplies. Bandages, antibiotics, pain medication. The inventory shows you've been signing out more than your usual amount." "I've been treating more patients," Tae-min said. His mouth was so dry he could barely speak. "Yes, I checked. But the numbers don't add up. You're using twice as many supplies as any other medic." Jin-ho walked around the tent slowly, looking at everything. "Where are they going, Corporal?" "I told you. To patients. Don't lie to me." Jin-ho's voice turned cold. "I've been doing this job for 5 years. I know when someone is hiding something." Jin-ho's voice. "I know when someone is hiding something." One of the MPs kicked the footlocker. "Should we check this, sir?" Tae-min felt his world collapsing. He wanted to run, to fight, to do anything. But he just stood there, frozen. "Yes," Jin-ho said. The MP knelt down and opened the footlocker. He started pulling out clothes, throwing them on the floor. Dirty uniforms, socks, a spare pair of boots. And then his hand touched the pile of laundry at the bottom. He frowned and pulled the laundry out. And there, curled up in the corner of the footlocker, was Ki-jun. The child's eyes were wide with terror. His patterns flashed orange, then red, then orange again. He made a small, whimpering sound. The MP jumped back, pulling his gun. "Contact. Enemy in the footlocker. Don't shoot," Tae-min shouted, throwing himself in front of the footlocker. "He's a child! Don't shoot!" The second MP had his gun out now, too. Jin-ho stared at Ki-jun with an expression of complete shock. "Get out of the way, Corporal," the first MP ordered. "No." Tae-min spread his arms wide, shielding the footlocker. "You'll have to shoot through me." "Stand down, Corporal Park," Jin-ho said. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "That's an order." What? "No, sir. I won't let you hurt him." Ki-jun crawled out of the footlocker. His forearms were shaking, but he moved to stand beside Tae-min. He reached up and took Tae-min's hand with one small hand. "Not shoot," he said in his musical voice. "Please. Not shoot." Tae-min. Jin-ho's eyes widened. "It speaks Korean?" "He speaks Korean," Tae-min corrected. "And his name is Ki-jun. He's 6 years old. His family was killed in an orbital strike on a refugee camp. He's not a soldier. He's not a threat. He's just a scared little boy. He's a Valkyrie," Jin-ho said. "He's the enemy. He's a child." The two MPs looked uncertain now, their guns still pointed but wavering. Ki-jun pressed against Tae-min's leg, trying to make himself small. Jin-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his radio. "This is Lieutenant Yoon. I need immediate backup at Corporal Park's tent. We have a situation." Within minutes, the tent was surrounded by soldiers. Colonel Dong-hyun Choi himself arrived, his face red with anger. He was a big man, with scars on his face from a Valkyrie plasma weapon. He had been fighting this war since the beginning, and everyone knew he hated the Valkyrie with every fiber of his being. "What is this?" the colonel demanded. Sir, Corporal Park has been hiding a Valkyrie child in his tent, Jinho reported. He's been stealing medical supplies to care for it. For him, Taemin said quietly. Not it. The colonel stared at Kijun. The child looked back, his patterns dim with fear. How long? 3 days, sir. 3 days. The colonel's voice was deadly calm. You've been harboring an enemy combatant for 3 days. He's not a combatant, sir. He's a child who needed help. He's Valkyrie. The colonel stepped closer, looming over Taemin. Do you know how many of my soldiers have died fighting his kind? Do you know what they did to my daughter? Taemin had heard the story. The colonel's daughter had been on a colony ship that the Valkyrie destroyed. No survivors. I know, sir. And I'm sorry. But killing a child won't bring her back. The colonel's hand moved to his sidearm. For a terrible moment, Taemin thought he was going to shoot both of them right there. But then Kijun did something unexpected. He stepped forward, moving away from Taemin's protection. He looked up at the colonel with those large, glowing eyes. Sorry, Kijun said in his small voice. Sorry for war. Sorry for pain. But Taemin good. He saved me. Please not hurt him. The colonel stared down at the child. Something flickered across his face, too fast for Taemin to read. Take him to containment, the colonel ordered. And arrest Corporal Park. He's confined to the brig until we can arrange a court-martial. No, Kijun screamed. His voice was loud, piercing. No, take Taemin. Please. 2 MPs grabbed Taemin's arms. He did not resist. Another soldier reached for Kijun, but the child tried to run to Taemin. The soldier grabbed him, and Kijun fought, his 4 arms flailing, his voice rising in that terrible scream. It's okay, Kijun, Taemin called out as they dragged him away. Taemin! Taemin! Kijun's voice followed him all the way across the base. They threw Taemin into a cell in the brig. It was a small concrete room with a metal bench and nothing else. He sat down and put his head in his hands. He had tried. He had tried so hard. But now Kijun was in containment, probably scared and alone. And Taemin was going to face a court-martial for treason. The hours passed slowly. No one came to see him. No one brought food or water. He was alone with his thoughts, replaying every moment, wondering what he could have done differently. Finally, after what felt like days, but was probably only 8 hours, someone opened his cell door. It was Captain Na Young Song, the base legal officer. She was a small woman, with intelligent eyes and a reputation for being fair but tough. Corporal Park, she said. I've been assigned as your defense attorney. I don't need a defense, Taemin said. I did what they're accusing me of. I don't regret it. Well, you should start regretting it, because they're charging you with treason. That carries the death penalty. Taemin looked up at her. How is Kijun? The child. Is he okay? Na Young's expression softened slightly. He's in containment. He won't eat. Won't speak. Just sits in the corner and cries for you. Pain shot through Taemin's chest. Can I see him? No. But I can tell you something else. Na Young sat down on the bench next to him. Something happened an hour ago. Something that changes everything. What? A Valkyrie warship appeared in orbit. A big one, capital class. It's just sitting there, not attacking. Taemin frowned. What does that have to do with Kijun? Na Young looked at him seriously. Because they broadcast a message. They said they know we have a child. They want him back. And they're willing to negotiate for his return. But how do they know? We don't know. But Taemin, this changes everything. That child isn't just any Valkyrie. They sent a capital ship for him. Intelligence is working on finding out who he is. Taemin thought about Kijun. His sweet face. His quick mind. The way he had tried to protect Taemin, even when he was terrified. I don't care who he is. I just want him safe. Then help me build your defense. Because, if we can figure out who that child is, we might be able to use this situation to everyone's advantage. Above the planet, the Velkari warship waited in silence, its weapons powered down but its message clear. They wanted the child back. And they were not going away until they got him. The interrogation room was cold and white. Kijun sat in a chair that was too big for him, his forearms wrapped around himself. A translator device sat on the table in front of him, a piece of technology that could convert Velkari language to human speech and back again. Tae-min watched through a one-way mirror in another room. Captain Na-young had convinced Colonel Dong-hyun to let him observe, arguing that Kijun might cooperate better if he knew Tae-min was nearby. The colonel had agreed, but only because they desperately needed information. The Velkari warship had been in orbit for 12 hours now. More ships had joined it. The entire Velkari fleet seemed to be gathering above the planet, and Earth Command was panicking. They needed to know why the Velkari wanted this one child so badly. Lieutenant Jin Ho sat across from Kijun, trying to look friendly. It was not working. The child's patterns were dim, almost gray. He had not eaten since they took him from Tae-min. His eyes were red from crying. Kijun, Jin-ho said gently. Can you tell us your full name? The child said nothing. He stared at the table. We're not going to hurt you. We just want to talk. Still nothing. Jin-ho sighed and looked at the mirror. He knew Tae-min was watching. Bring him in, he said. The door opened and 2 guards brought Tae-min into the room. He was still in restraints, his hands cuffed in front of him. But the moment Kijun saw him, the child's patterns exploded into bright pink. Tae-min! Kijun jumped off the chair and ran to him, wrapping all 4 arms around Tae-min's waist. Tae-min here. Tae-min, okay? Tae-min. 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 Tae-min could not hug back because of the restraints. But he bent down and pressed his face against the top of Kijun's head. I'm here, little one. I'm right here. They say you in trouble. Big trouble. Because of me. Kijun looked up with tears streaming down his face. I so sorry. It's not your fault. None of this is your fault. Jin-ho cleared his throat. Corporal Park, sit down, please. Kijun, you need to answer some questions. Tae-min sat in the chair, and Kijun immediately climbed into his lap, refusing to let go. Jin-ho did not try to separate them. He could see it would be pointless. Kijun, Jin-ho said, those ships up in space, they came for you. Why? Who are you? Kijun was quiet for a moment. Then, he looked at Tae-min. If I tell truth, they hurt you more? No, Tae-min said softly. Telling the truth will help. I promise. Kijun took a deep breath. When he spoke through the translator, his voice was small, but clear. My name Kijun Velaria. My grandmother is matriarch of all Velkari people. The room went completely silent. Jin-ho's mouth fell open. Through the one-way mirror, Tae-min could hear people shouting in the observation room. You're the grandson of the Velkari matriarch. Jin-ho repeated, like he could not believe what he was hearing. Yes, my mother was her daughter. My father was her war leader. They try to take me away from war. Take me to safe place. But human ships find our convoy. They think we are military. They shoot from sky. Kill everyone. I only one who survive. The words hit Tae-min like physical blows. The child in his arms was Velkari royalty. No wonder the fleet had come for him. Jin-ho leaned forward. Why didn't you tell us this before? Because I afraid. Kijun said simply. If humans know who I am, they keep me prisoner. Use me against grandmother. But Tae-min never ask who I am. He just see hurt child and help. That why I trust him. The door burst open and Colonel Dong-hyun entered. His face tight with anger, and something else. Fear, maybe. Is this true? We've been holding the matriarch's grandson? Yes, sir, Jinho said. It appears so. The colonel looked at Kijun, then at Taemin. Do you understand what this means, Corporal? We have the biggest bargaining chip in this entire war sitting in your lap. He's not a bargaining chip, Taemin said quietly. He's a child who lost his family. He's the key to ending this war. Earth Command will want him transferred to a secure facility immediately. They'll use him to force the Valkyrie to surrender. Kijun's patterns flashed red. He understood enough to know what the colonel meant. If humans use me, grandmother will not surrender. She will destroy whole planet. Kill everyone. She love me. But she love her people more. She will not let them be slaves. Then what does she want? Colonel Donghyun demanded. She want me home. Safe. That all. Kijun looked around the room at all the human faces. But I tell you secret. Grandmother not want war anymore. Many Valkyrie not want war. Tired of dying. Tired of losing children. But military leaders say we must fight. Say humans will kill us all if we stop. Jinho exchanged glances with the colonel. You're saying there's a peace faction among the Valkyrie? Yes. Grandmother lead peace faction. But she weak, because military strong. If I die, or if humans hurt me, military say, see, we told you humans are monsters. Then peace faction lose. War never end. The child's words hung in the air. Taemin could see the wheels turning in everyone's minds. This was bigger than one child. This was about the entire war. Captain Na-young entered the room. She had been in the observation room, listening to everything. The colonel left with Na-young. Through the door, Taemin could hear raised voices but could not make out the words. Kijun pressed closer to him. I scared, the child whispered. What they do to us? I don't know, Taemin admitted. But I won't let them hurt you. I promise. You keep making promises. But you just human. Humans break easy in war. The words stung because they were true. Taemin was just one soldier. He could not protect Kijun from the might of Earth Command, or from the political forces that would want to use him. The door opened again. The colonel returned with Captain Na-young, Lieutenant Jinho, and two other officers Taemin did not recognize. They all looked serious. Colonel Donghyun sat down across from Taemin and Kijun. I've been in communication with Earth Command. They want the child transferred immediately. Taemin felt his heart sink. However, the colonel continued, Captain Song has made an interesting argument. She believes that using the child as a hostage would be a mistake. Instead, she proposes we return him to the Valkyrie as a gesture of good faith. Taemin looked at Na-young in surprise. She gave him a small nod. Sir, with respect, are you seriously considering this? One of the other officers said. I am, the colonel replied. Because the captain is right. If we use this child as a weapon, we prove to every Valkyrie that we are exactly what their military leaders say we are. Monsters who would hurt children to win a war. But if we return him safely, unharmed, we show them something different. We show them weakness, the officer argued. No. We show them mercy. We show them that humans have honor. The colonel looked at Kijun. We show them that we're not the enemy they think we are. But sir, Earth Command is not here. I am, and I'm making the decision. The colonel stood up. We're going to arrange an exchange. We'll return Kijun to his grandmother. No conditions. No demands. Just a return of a child to his family. Jinho frowned. The matriarch will never believe we're doing this out of kindness. She'll think it's a trick. Jinho frowned. Then we'll need someone she can trust to deliver the message. The colonel looked at Taemin. Someone who has proven he cares more about the child's safety than about politics or war. Taemin's eyes widened. You want me to go? You saved his life. You protected him at the risk of your own. If anyone can convince the matriarch that we're acting in good faith, it's you. The colonel paused. That is, if you're willing. The charges against you are still pending. If I do this, will you drop the charges? No. But I'll recommend leniency to the court-martial board. You'll probably face demotion and loss of privileges, but not execution. Taemin looked down at Kijun. The child was watching him with those large, trusting eyes. I'll do it, Taemin said. Not for the leniency, but because it's the right thing to do. Kijun hugged him tighter. You really take me home? Yes, little one. I'm taking you home. Captain Na Yang smiled. There's one more thing you should know, Corporal. Kijun has been telling his grandmother stories. Through some kind of telepathic link we don't fully understand. He's been sharing everything that happened. How you found him. How you cared for him. How you risked everything to keep him safe. And? Taemin asked. And those stories have been spreading through the Velkari communication networks. Millions of Velkari have heard about the human soldier who showed mercy to an enemy child. It's causing quite a stir in their society. Some are saying that if one human can be that compassionate, maybe not all humans are monsters. Jinho nodded. It's the beginning of something. Maybe not peace. Not yet. But the beginning of the possibility of peace. Taemin looked at Kijun and saw not just a child, but hope. Hope for an end to the killing. Hope for a future where Velkari and humans did not have to be enemies. When do we leave? He asked. At dawn tomorrow, the colonel said. The matriarch has agreed to a neutral meeting point on the surface. You'll carry Kijun to her personally. Everywhen. Number lead. Thanks for watching. Everywhen. Number lead. That night, they let Taemin stay with Kijun in a guarded room instead of the brig. The child fell asleep in Taemin's arms, his patterns glowing soft blue. Finally peaceful, Taemin stayed awake, holding him, knowing that tomorrow everything would change. Outside, the Valkyrie fleet waited. And somewhere up there, a grandmother waited for news of her grandson, carried to her by the most unlikely messenger, a human soldier who had chosen kindness over hate. The morning sun rose over Viridian 7, painting the devastated landscape in shades of gold and red. Taemin stood at the edge of the landing zone, holding Kijun's hand. The child wore clean clothes now, and his wounds were almost completely healed. But his patterns flickered between blue and orange. Nervous and scared. Around them, hundreds of human soldiers stood in formation, weapons ready but pointed down. This was supposed to be a peaceful exchange, but no one was taking chances. The Valkyrie were capable of tricks, and so were humans. Colonel Dong-hyun stood next to Taemin. The colonel had not said much since they left the base. He just kept looking at Kijun, with an expression Taemin could not read. Are you ready, Corporal? The colonel asked. Yes, sir. Remember, you walk Kijun to the center point. You hand him over to the matriarch. You do not engage in conversation. You do not make promises on behalf of Earth Command. You simply return the child and come back. Understood? Understood, sir. Above them, the sky darkened. Taemin looked up, and his breath caught. Velkari ships were descending. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They covered the sky like a metal storm cloud, blocking out the sun. The sound of their engines was deafening. Kijun squeezed Taemin's hand. So many ships. Grandmother really worried about me. The ships settled into position around the landing zone, surrounding the human forces completely. If this went wrong, if someone fired a single shot, everyone here would die in seconds. One ship landed in the center of the zone. It was massive, elegant, covered in the same glowing patterns that marked Kijun's skin. The boarding ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. Figures emerged from the ship. Velkari soldiers, tall and armored, carrying weapons that hummed with power. They formed two lines, creating a path. And then she appeared. The matriarch was enormous, easily 3 meters tall. Her skin was covered in patterns that glowed bright gold, and she wore robes that seemed to be made of liquid light. She had 6 arms instead of 4, marking her as ancient and powerful. Her face was regal and beautiful and terrible all at once. She walked down the ramp slowly, her eyes scanning the human forces until they landed on Ki-jun. Her entire body seemed to tremble. Now, Colonel Dong-hyun said quietly, "Walk him out. Walk him out. Walk him out." Taemin and Ki-jun started walking. Each step felt like walking into a dream. The ground between the human lines and the Valkyrie lines seemed to stretch forever. Taemin could feel hundreds of eyes on them, human and Valkyrie, watching every move. Ki-jun walked beside him, his small hand gripping Taemin's tightly. "I scared," he whispered. "I know. But your grandmother is right there. She loves you. Everything will be okay." They reached the center point, exactly halfway between the two forces. The matriarch walked toward them from the other side. As she got closer, Taemin could see tears running down her face, glowing like liquid starlight. "Ki-jun," she said in a voice that was deep and musical, and filled with so much love. It hurt to hear. "My child. My precious child." Ki-jun let go of Taemin's hand and ran. The matriarch fell to her knees and caught him in all 6 arms, wrapping him in an embrace that looked like it would never end. She made a sound that was half sob, half song, and Ki-jun cried with her. Taemin stood there, suddenly feeling very alone. His job was done. He should turn around and walk back to the human lines, but his feet would not move. The matriarch looked up at him. Her eyes were the same as Ki-jun's, large and glowing and ancient. She stood slowly, still holding Ki-jun against her chest with 4 arms. "You are Taemin," she said in perfect Korean. "The one who saved my grandson." "Yes, matriarch. Ki-jun has told me everything. Through our bond, I have seen through his eyes. I saw you find him. I saw you heal him. I saw you risk your life to protect him." She stepped closer. "Why? He is Valkyrie. Your enemy. Why did you save him?" Taemin thought about the question. He thought about his brother, about all the death he had seen, about the hatred that had driven this war for so long. "Because he needed help," Taemin said simply. "And because he's a child. That's all the reason I needed." The matriarch was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something that made every human soldier raise their weapons. She bowed, deeply, a gesture of profound respect. "You have given me back what I thought I had lost forever. There is no payment sufficient for such a gift. But I offer you this. Come with us. Come to the Valkyrie homeworld. Be our guest. Show my people that not all humans are what we have believed them to be." Taemin was stunned. "Matriarch, I cannot make that decision. I'm just a soldier. You are more than a soldier. You are proof that peace is possible." She looked past him at the human forces. "I wish to speak with your leader." Colonel Dong-hyun walked forward slowly. He stopped a few meters away, his hand resting on his sidearm. "I am Colonel Dong-hyun Choi, commander of this base." The matriarch studied him. "You have suffered much in this war. I can see it in your eyes. You have lost someone dear to you." The colonel's jaw tightened. "My daughter. Your people killed her, and my sons died to human weapons. And their children. And their children's children." The matriarch's voice was heavy with sorrow. "This war has taken everything from both our peoples. How much more must we lose before we say enough?" "Your military started this war," the colonel said. "You invaded human colonies because we believed you were invading our sacred territories. Because we believed you sought to destroy us." The matriarch shook her head. "But I begin to think we were both lied to, by leaders who profit from war, by those who gain power from our hatred." She gestured to Ki-jun, who was watching everything with wide eyes. "This child should have died. But one human chose mercy over vengeance. One human chose to see a child instead of an enemy. That choice has traveled across my entire empire. Millions of Velkhari have heard this story. And for the first time in years, they are asking questions. They are wondering if peace might be possible. Colonel Donghyun looked at Taemin, then at Kijun, then back at the matriarch. What are you proposing? What are you proposing? A ceasefire. Immediate. Then negotiations. Real negotiations. Not the political theater we have attempted before. And I propose that Corporal Taemin come to my world as the first human ambassador. Let my people see him. Let them hear his story from his own mouth. Let them learn that humans are capable of compassion. The colonel was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I don't have the authority to agree to this. I'll need to contact Earth Command. Clued. I understand. But know this. I am offering you what I would not have offered a week ago. I am offering you the possibility of ending this war. Not with surrender, but with mutual understanding. Because one human soldier showed my grandson that not all humans are monsters. Kijun suddenly pulled away from his grandmother and ran back to Taemin. He threw his 4 arms around Taemin's waist. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. Kijun, you have to stay with your grandmother. You're safe now, but I need you. You're my family too. The child looked up with tear-filled eyes. Come with us. Please. Be ambassador. Teach my people about humans. Teach them about kindness. Taemin looked at the child he had saved. The child who had somehow become so important to him in just a few days. Then he looked at Colonel Donghyun. The colonel's expression had softened. It's your choice, Corporal. I can't order you to do this. But I think Captain Song was right. If anyone can build a bridge between our peoples, it's you. Taemin thought about everything he had gone through. The war, the death, the hatred, and then he thought about Kijun's laugh. The sound of small hands clapping when he learned a new word. The trust in those glowing eyes. I'll do it, he said. I'll go. Kijun's patterns exploded into the brightest pink Taemin had ever seen. The child jumped up and down, all 4 arms waving. Yes, yes, Taemin coming home with us. The matriarch smiled, and it transformed her entire face. You honor us, Taemin of Earth. I promise you will be safe in my care. Over the next hour, arrangements were made. Haewon was allowed to join Taemin, along with 2 other medics. They would form the first human medical team to work with the Velkhari. Other specialists would follow if the ceasefire held. As Taemin prepared to board the Velkhari ship, Colonel Donghyun pulled him aside. I judged you harshly, Corporal. I thought you were a traitor. But you might have just saved more lives than I ever did. In all my years of fighting. The colonel held out his hand. I came Inal. I came Lam. Maybe. Thank you. Taemin shook his hand. I just did what felt right, sir. That's exactly why it worked. The boarding ramp felt strange under Taemin's feet as he walked up into the Velkhari ship. Kijun held his hand, bouncing with excitement, pointing out everything and explaining what it was in his mixed language of Velkhari and Korean. As the ship lifted off, Taemin looked out the window at the base below. He saw human soldiers watching, some waving. He saw the scarred landscape of Viridian 7, marked by years of war, and he wondered what the future would hold. The matriarch came to stand beside him. You are thinking of those you left behind. Yes. And wondering if this will really work. If one person's choice can really change a war. It already has. Look. She activated a holographic display. It showed Velkhari news networks, millions of them, all showing the same thing. Footage of Taemin carrying Kijun, walking him to safety. The story of the human soldier who chose compassion. This story has reached every world in our empire. It has touched hearts that I thought had turned to stone from grief and anger. There are peace rallies happening on 12 worlds right now. The military leaders who wanted to continue the war are losing support by the hour. Tae-min watched the footage in amazement. He had not realized Ki-jun was sharing so much through their telepathic bond. He had not known his simple act of helping a hurt child would spread so far. On your world too, the story is spreading, the matriarch continued. Humans are watching this exchange. They are seeing that we did not attack, did not betray the truce. They are learning that Valkyrie can keep their word. Ki-jun tugged on Tae-min's sleeve. You're famous! Everyone knows you now. I don't want to be famous. I just wanted to help you. That's why it matters, Ki-jun said wisely. If you want to be hero, you not real hero. But you not want to be hero. You just want to help. That make you real hero. The ship accelerated, jumping to faster than light travel. Through the window, Tae-min watched as Viridian 7 disappeared behind them. They were heading to the Valkyrie homeworld, a place no human had ever seen. He felt afraid. He felt uncertain. But when Ki-jun took his hand and smiled up at him with those glowing eyes, he also felt hope. Maybe one person could not end a war. But one person could make a choice. One choice could inspire others. And enough choices, enough acts of compassion, might build a bridge strong enough to carry two civilizations from war to peace. 6 months later, the war officially ended. The treaty was signed in a ceremony, attended by both human and Valkyrie leaders. Tae-min stood on the stage, with Ki-jun beside him, as symbols of what was possible when people chose to see each other as people, rather than enemies. A monument was built at the landing zone on Viridian 7, marking the spot where the exchange had taken place. The inscription read, "Where war ended and family began." 1. Tae-min continued his work as an ambassador and medic, teaching Valkyrie about humans and learning about Valkyrie in return. HFY worked beside him, building medical exchange programs. Human and Valkyrie children began meeting, learning each other's languages, playing together. It was not perfect. There were still those on both sides who did not trust the peace. There were still wounds that would take generations to heal. But it was a start, and it had all begun with one simple choice: to help a frightened child crawling into a tent on a battlefield, seeking nothing more than a moment of kindness in a world full of hate. Tae-min had given that kindness. And in return, he had been given something more precious than he ever imagined: the chance to change the future, not through violence or grand strategy, but through the smallest, most human act of all: compassion. In the end, that was what made humans special. Not their weapons, or their technology, or their tactical brilliance, but their ability to look at an enemy and choose to see a person. To look at a child and choose to help, no matter the cost. That was the unexpected move that changed everything. The move that no one saw coming. The move that proved, in the end, that humanity's greatest strength was not their capacity for war, it was their capacity for love.